They've surrendered to the communists.
Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go. But I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all, to a special Morning Dew edition of the Dew Dissidents podcast. Keaton Weiss here. Russell's got to unmute his microphone. What happened? Were you frozen? You haven't unmuted your microphone yet. You got to unmute your microphone. Russell is still muted. Russell's having technical difficulties out in Los Angeles. I think he's frozen again. Russell's going to have to... You haven't unmuted your microphone. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I could try to bring this over to the main house, man. That's what Steph is suggesting.
Did she give you the Wi-Fi stuff?
Am I frozen?
No, you're good now.
It's the same Wi-Fi, but it'll be a different router.
It'll work a little better?
Yeah, but you're not. You're frozen to me.
Oh, okay. So yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, you can go ahead and do that. Can you hear me? Yes or no?
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can? Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you want, you can do that.
It's like it keeps coming in and out.
I mean, our first segment is with Kynan anyway, so I could admit Kynan, do that segment with Kynan while you get set up, and then you'll just come in after. That'd be fine.
Okay. All right. I was gonna ask Kynan. There's a guy in the neighborhood who owes me money. I was gonna have him go do an intervention on him.
Oh, all right. Well, I'll pass along the word. Do you want to go set up in the Jimmy Dore studio?
All right. I'll try it, man. I mean, I can't do a show like this.
Yeah, it's very strange. It's weird. All right, well, try it, and I'll do this segment with our guest, and then
I'll give
just
it a
sign
try.
back in. Cool. All righty. All right, Russell Dobular, everybody. You know, it's interesting. We have about 6 inches of snow on the ground here in upstate New York, and so I was nervous about my power and my Wi-Fi. And I was getting jealous of Russell. I'm like, damn, it's nice to be in LA where you're not going to have any technical problems. It's bright and sunny and nothing interesting ever happens. I'm stuck here. There's a winter storm going on right now. So I was nervous about my Wi-Fi. But turns out it's Russell having a problem with his. The irony of that. Pretty incredible stuff. So let me just do one thing here. All right. Am I still coming through? Kynan, can you still hear me? Thumbs up? Yeah. I just changed. You know why? Because you guys get in our heads. You say we speak too close to the mic. So I changed the setting on my mic so it's far away. And now people are saying they can hear my kids in the background. So this is why I have to set my mic like this so that you won't hear the kids anymore. All righty. Now that we got all that straightened out, I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. 782 in the YouTube chat, 461 over on Rumble. We'll do our 666 with Russell so he could headbang for you guys during our second segment. But thank you all very much for being here this morning. We appreciate you all. We are joined conveniently by a special guest for at least one segment. If Russell's internet doesn't work, I might make him stay the whole time. But let's bring in our guest. He is a staffer for the Jose Vega for Congress campaign, who is also an intervener and grassroots peace protester who just did an action in New York City a few days ago. Our friend, you've seen him all before if you've watched us for a while, Kynan Thistlethwaite. Kynan, what's going on, my friend?
I'm doing well, man. I feel bad for Russ, but I'll be sure to beat up that guy for him.
Okay, good. Well, he doesn't need to beat him up. Nonviolent intervention, remember?
Oh, right, nonviolence.
Just go and remind him that he owes him money. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just go forcefully remind him, yes, that he is in debt to Russell Dobular. But how's it going, man? How's the campaign going, first of all?
It's going well, man. It's been a lot of fun. We've been making calls. As you know, our petitioning campaign is coming up, so we're kind of ramping up for that. But later, Jose and I have a meeting with someone special in the New York area, so that should be fun.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of fun. I never know what to think when you guys say you have a meeting with somebody. Is that a meeting or an intervention coming up?
Oh, well, this one.
Can you not say?
This one's a meeting.
An actual meeting.
I can say that. Yeah,
so a meeting that both parties agree to. That's rare when it comes to you guys.
Yeah.
You guys usually
consent on both sides.
Yeah, there you go. Consent on both sides this time. Indeed. Well, you were at a media summit, a media panel at Columbia University, and you interrupted them and said, when are you going to talk about something real? Which I thought you did a fantastic job here. We're going to play the video in just a second, but to set this up, what was the event and what were they talking about that was, quote unquote, unreal?
Yeah, so the title of the event was Democracy on the Brink, is the press up to the task? And it was a Columbia University event at the Columbia School of Journalism. You may remember it was a year ago that Jose had intervened at a similar event.
Yes.
When he said, where is Cy Hirsch? I thought Cy Hirsch was going to be here, right? So, and it's the exact same venue. But these were, journalists and columnists from the New York Times. The editor-in-chief of Vox was there. And there was also a national bestseller, Garrett Graff, who had written a book on Robert Mueller and how, the FBI is the savior of the United States. We did so well in the war on terror. And, what was on the agenda is how is the press going to reestablish itself amidst the November election when Trump has a very good chance of winning. So all of it was fake. I mean, it was a total facade. No issues were being discussed. Nothing about the genocide in Gaza, not about the lies they've told about Ukraine. So that was my idea going into this, to talk about something real.
Well, you did a great job. We're going to play this video right now, and then we'll talk a little more.
Great.
Can we actually talk about something real now? I mean, the UN, the United Nations, has just passed a resolution for an immediate ceasefire during the holiday of Ramadan. And Kirby and Matt Miller of the State Department has said that such resolution is non-binding. I mean, has the media reported that? I mean, Craig Mokhiber, who headed the Human Rights Council in New York for the UN, he's left his position. I'm sure you wouldn't leave your positions in the media because you're more concerned about your own career than actually telling the truth. But the United States has already destroyed the international legal framework. Democracy, is that why democracy is on the brink? What about in Ukraine? What has the media said that's actually been right about Ukraine? We have a meat grinder there now, 500,000 dead Ukrainians, because the media was trying to build up support for us for the Biden administration sending weapons, and it's a total meat grinder. Ukraine is not going to win. It's actually going to lead to nuclear war. Why don't we talk about something real? You know what the French president had said? You know what Macron had said? Macron is saying that he's going to send troops, unilaterally send troops to Ukraine. What's going to happen, okay?
Okay, so about halfway through here, they say, let them speak. First of all, you were terrific. I mean, you had all that material ready to go, memorized completely smooth. Like, you just kept going. Mm-hmm. Usually they would start dragging you out before you got this far. Were you surprised you made it this far? Maybe it's because you're a, skinny, nice-looking white boy, and they didn't drag you out right away, because Jose usually gets dragged out right away.
Yeah. Well, I was actually telling Jose he should have been there to be my security, to drag me out. Because, I was really surprised. I'm like, oh, wow, I'm actually going to have to go on for a while. I hope I can keep it up. I don't want it to be awkward, but yeah.
Yeah, because it is kind of awkward if they let you go and you run out of things to say, but right. You did not run out of things to say. And at a certain time, you actually do give them the mic, and they don't actually answer you. They tell you sit down, right? So let's get to that.
That's going to lead to World War III. That will lead to nuclear war. Is that why democracy is on the brink? Huh? What about, where are the Cy Hirsches of the media who broke the story about Nord Stream? You all undermine that story, okay? This is a total facade. They're not talking about real issues. We are on the brink of World War III right now, and all these people here will tell you that Trump is the problem, that the election is going to be the problem. No, democracy is on the brink. We're going to go to World War III. Why don't you say something about that? Okay. You need to sit down, please. No, why don't you address my question? No, I want them to address it right now. No. Why don't you address the question? You're not talking about anything real here.
Because we have a program here. We have Q&A.
What about the genocide in Gaza? Are you going to address that?
We're here to talk about Donald Trump.
Can you address that right now?
This is group therapy. This is a group therapy session about Donald Trump.
What is American democracy then?
It's time to go. We will get up and take this guy out. Sit down, sir.
Address the question, please.
We are in the middle of conversation here.
About nothing that actually matters.
This event is not for you. Please, can you understand that? Be respectful.
That's good.
It's not your event.
That's good. I noticed this when I was doing some coverage of the campaign in New Hampshire. None of the candidates, none of the Democrats, none of the Republicans brought up Gaza or Ukraine. I think Nikki Haley gave a quick mention to like Putin is on the march and we have to stand up to him, but that's it. Like no one talked about any of these real issues as you said, and it's just incredible to see how I won't even say in a bubble these people are, because it's worse than a bubble. It is a parallel reality. It's a parallel universe. They're obsessed with Donald Trump and his subverting of democracy and his 91 felony counts. I'm assuming it was a lot of that and none of the other things.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what it was. And it's funny that you say parallel universes, because Orban, I think the prime minister of Hungary, he had put it almost in the exact same way when comparing himself to these lunatics in Europe that want to continue the war in Ukraine. They want to escalate. And yet he's there, he's calling for legitimate negotiations, which we all know the war in Ukraine is going to come to a negotiated settlement at one point. I mean, Russia has won, there's 500,000 dead Ukrainians. And he described it as we're in two separate universes, one that's reality and one, that's totally distorted.
Yeah, it is just amazing to see an event like that talks about democracy on the brink, and the focus seems to be just so singular. And it really, I mean, I said it as a joke, but this really is group therapy for people. Like, this is cheap therapy for people who don't want to commit to every week. That's what the TV news is. That's what summits like this are like. So how long into the event did you decide, okay, I got to stand up?
I actually waited quite a while. I wanted to give them a chance. I wanted to hear what they had to say. I mean, it turned out to be nothing real. It was about 30 minutes in. And at that point, I'm like, okay, I better say something now before this event ends. And there was a Q&A as well, but I personally just didn't want to wait till then. So yeah, I'd say about a half hour in. But, oh yeah, the part you didn't show, speaking of group therapy, the moderator had said, we're going to take a 5-minute break. And I guess that's so everyone could go to their safe spaces afterwards.
Did I not show that, or did I talk over it? Is there another video?
Oh, was that the whole video?
Yeah, that was the whole thing. Here, maybe I talked over it. Let me see if I can. Here, I'll play it at the end, because I open my mouth. I tend to do that.
You're not going to address the genocide. What is American democracy then?
It's time to go. We will get up and take this guy out.
Sit down, sir.
Address the question, please.
We are in the middle of conversation here.
About nothing that actually matters.
Others want to listen to it. This event is not for you. Please, can you understand that? Be respectful.
It's not for you.
Yeah, that's where it comes up on my end.
Oh.
Yeah, but that was funny. I'm glad we got that, because yeah, this event is not for you. Yeah, no shit. That was the core of what you were saying. Yes.
Yeah. I should have probably edited the video myself. I told Jose to edit it, and he didn't include that last part, so I'm gonna blame him for that.
Oh, there you go.
They said we're taking a 5-minute break afterwards.
Oh, really? So they actually broke it up because
they broke it up.
Continue.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really? Wow.
And after everyone had left, someone came up to me and said, "All right, it's time for you to go." But I actually kind of did want to stay. And then after the break, everyone comes back and I stand up. I'm like, okay, so getting back to the...
All right. So everybody got their coffee and in their water. Beautiful. Yeah, no, really, really well done. It's great. Russell, did you have anything for Kynan?
Yeah, it's one of the problems we have in the activist space is everybody's broke. All the money is on the other side. Have you thought about interventions for hire? Because, I think there'd be a market for that. Yeah. Somebody's mad at the ex-husband. They call you up, send you over there, disrupt their wedding to the secretary. Right?
Well, it sounded like in the beginning you were looking for that. So, I
am. That's what gave me the idea. I was like, I would pay this kid to go yell at people.
Yeah. How does 500 sound?
I think you could get a lot more than that. You're thinking small.
You're a pro.
Go door knocking on Fifth Avenue. You'll never find a more bilious bunch of rich people who would be willing to pay to have you disrupt people's events.
Yeah, you know that service Cameo where like they'll pay a celebrity $50 to wish their friend a happy birthday? Do that, but for interventions. Yeah, that's an idea. That's an idea for sure. Well, really well done, Kynan. Always great to talk to you. Before you go, I want to give you a chance to plug Jose's site. So votevega.nyc. Jose's going to be on the Jimmy Dore Show with us tomorrow, and then we're going to have him on here next week because the ballot window for signatures to get on the ballot, rather, starts in less than 2 weeks. So do you want to tell people about that?
Yeah, sure. It starts exactly on April 16th, and we're going to have till May 31st to collect signatures. And also Jose will be running with Diane Sayre. She's an independent for U.S. Senate against Kirsten Gillibrand. Jose himself needs 3,500 signatures in Richie Torres's district. And that really means 10,000 because all kinds of tricks are going to be played to get us off the ballot. So we need petitioners. If you're watching and you're in the Bronx area, I'd suggest that you go to the website and get in contact with us because, the way Jose has put it is that his vote represents the uncommitted vote against Biden in other states. So, I mean, please volunteer with the campaign. Please donate to the campaign, and we'll have a lot of fun and kick some ass.
Awesome. Me and Keaton, we're working out a day that we will come down to canvass.
Yeah, well, I'll definitely be down there. I'm almost positive it'll be the 20th, which is a Saturday. So if anybody wants to come and pound the pavement with your favorite JOOs in the Bronx, we will announce a time and place to meet, and I'm almost certain it'll be Saturday the 20th. I have to confirm that finally, but that's looking like the date for now. But speaking of uncommitted, because you just brought it up, New York just had a primary where they weren't allowed to write in uncommitted. So there was a leave it blank movement. Now, the thing about New York, and Russell and I talk about this all the time, it's the most corrupt state for this kind of thing in the country, bar none. You're not allowed to write in uncommitted, which makes it difficult to impossible to actually measure how many protest votes there were because they weren't actual votes. They were blank ballots at the top line. And so somebody did an aggregate of what he estimated the numbers were. And I didn't put this on the screen because, frankly, I don't trust it. Because according to this study that this one guy did to estimate the amount of protest votes against Biden, 6% left it blank in the Bronx and 10% left it blank in Staten Island, which I find almost impossible, that there's more pro-Palestine protest votes in Staten Island than in the Bronx. Like, that can't be right. But nonetheless, there were a decent number of protest votes cast, and so I think you're right. That is the constituency that you have to tap into, and we will help you guys out as best we can. Like I said, Jose is going to come on the Jimmy Show tomorrow, and then we're going to have him on next week, and then Russell and I will be out pounding the pavement at the early part of that window. Like I said, probably that Saturday, 2 Saturdays from now.
Yeah. Well, thanks for telling me that, actually, because I was also I never changed my registration from Democrat to independent. So my mom and I went to the primaries and we just casted a blank ballot, and I wasn't able to find anything online as to how many people had done that. So, I mean, maybe the figures aren't totally accurate, but it gives some idea.
Well, some people definitely did. And I mean, it was a fairly organized movement.
What do they do with write-in candidates? Because when there's really no one to vote for, I'll usually write in Paul Atreides or Bruce Wayne on occasion. What do they do with those? Do they count that as uncommitted?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you.
You
were the one who's bringing it up.
No, I don't know how they work that, but I know you weren't allowed to write in uncommitted on the primary. Yeah, so I'm not sure how they do it for the general election. I'm assuming they would count them. I'm assuming that they would count them. All righty. Well, Kynan, thank you so much for being here. The website is votevega.nyc to get involved in the campaign, and I'm sure we'll be seeing you when we are in the city getting some signatures. So we'll stay in touch, my friend. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
See you guys on the 20th.
Thank you, Kynan.
All righty, you got it. Kynan Thistlethwaite, everybody. That kid's got gusto, as they say.
He's got moxie.
He's got moxie. He's got moxie.
That kid's gonna go far.
Yeah, he's going to go far. He's going to go places. I see Steph Zamorano in the chat. So shout out to Steph. Thank you, Steph, for giving us advice on how to get the Wi-Fi going.
Yes, I'm sitting in her chair now.
Oh, beautiful. Nice.
This is her chair in her office. Yes, thank you. And I hope you guys are having a great time. They sent a fun picture from Stockholm yesterday.
Yeah, the tweets look good.
Good time is being had by Amsterdam. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of pictures. Looks like good times over there. So congratulations on all of that. Russell, we owe a couple of headbangs here. So let's do this. Let's knock these out before we continue on.
You waited.
Of course I waited, yeah. Yep. That's for the YouTube, 1450 in the YouTube chat, 736 over on Rumble, so we owe you another one. Yeah, Nick and CJ actually headbanged with me yesterday.
I've still got to see that, man. I told you got to clip that.
I forget where the timestamp is. It's probably about an hour in or so.
That I've got to see. That's got to be awesome, man.
Yeah, Nick was into it. Nick wanted to. A super chatter, a Rumble ranter rather asked. And then, Nick was into it, so we went ahead and did that. All right, well, knock on wood. Looks like your Wi-Fi is solid.
It's solid over here, man. I mean, I guess it's something with the router over there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I would figure for the Jimmy Dore show, you got to have solid internet because they're running high-def cameras, right? I mean, that can't run on a shaky Wi-Fi, so that's got to be where the good shit is. It's got to be where all that good internet is, all that good 5G. You know, you'll probably walk out of there with a second head.
I should have done it in the studio.
Yeah, well, there you go. Pat Donahue, that host, you're talking about, what's the guy's name? Richard Hadley. Richard Hadley from Good Morning Britain is normally right-wing and an apologist for power. So his outrage is underlined by racism, given now he's angry some white folks were killed. Yeah, I don't doubt that.
Sure.
I mean, that is an element of this, you know.
Well, that's where Israel fucked up.
Yeah.
You got to keep it to the brown people, man. Once you start messing with white people, then you start getting these very sympathetic profiles in the news. I woke up to that. Man killed in Israeli strike was father military veteran. I don't see those profiles of these Palestinians being killed.
Right, they're fathers too. They don't mention that though.
Nope.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hobbs, thanks for the $11 over on Rumble. Don't you hate it when March Madness turns into April eating disorder? Yes, it's funny. You know what's funny, Hobbs? I was bored the other night because I was waiting for the Yankee game to come on because the Yankees got off to a good start, so I'm now watching a little bit of baseball when I can. They shocked everybody. Now they're 6-1. But the other day, I was like, hey, isn't the final game on? Isn't the March Madness finals game on? And then I realized it's April 2nd. So, of course, it has ended already. But, yeah, now it's April snowstorms. We have a huge snowstorm. I was telling everybody, Russell, while you were setting up, the ultimate irony of this is I was worried about my power and Wi-Fi this morning because we have 6 inches of snow here. And I was like, damn it, Russell's out in L.A. He doesn't have to worry about this shit. And I'm stuck here in northern New York. It got snow in April. And then that happens. So how do you like that?
Hey, man, the last time I was here, it rained so hard the guest house I stay in flooded.
Flooded, yeah. No, really wild.
You have plenty of apocalyptic weather events here.
Crazy shit. Nocturnal Human, I'm still watching your Thursday show. You mean Tuesday show, maybe? Because it's Thursday today, unless you're watching last Thursday's show. I now have the same non-problem with you as with RBN. There's too much content to keep up with. It's great. I always have something to listen to. Well, thank you, Nocturnal Human. Appreciate that. We're a little slow getting the clips out this week because we're working 2 shows, but I will get some clips out today and tomorrow. So you'll see the channel populated with segments fairly soon. So thank you all for that. Once again, thanks for being here. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let's move on to segment number 2. All right, folks, we have a rule on this show. The rule on this show is that we will only cover gossipy matters if it speaks to a larger issue, and that's a rule we are kind of fudging and suspending when it comes to Steve O's comments about Bill Maher. But I feel I should make an exception in Bill Maher's case because I think it's important to communicate what a bad person Bill Maher is. I feel like that's newsworthy. I feel like that is substantive. And part of why I feel that is substantive is because, as you'll see later in the show, we have 2 videos of the Morning Joe panel basically going off on Joe Biden, saying not only should we cut off weapons to Israel, but we should start sanctioning Israel. Since when did you ever expect a Morning Joe panel to talk about sanctions against Israel? So if those scumbags could admit that they were wrong about Israel, or at least wrong in their staunch support for Israel at the beginning, you'd think Bill Maher would be capable of the same thing. But no, you know why? Because he's a bad guy. He's a very bad guy. He's a bad person.
He's very bad. People are saying he's a douchebag.
People are saying he's a real douchebag.
Okay, but in all seriousness, in Hollywood, how much of a douchebag do you have to be for the agency you've been with for 20 years to be like, you know what? Let's just not invite him to our big party so that he'll quit the agency on his own. How loathsome a person do you have to be too much of a douchebag to be invited to a Hollywood party by your own agents?
Exactly. That's what happened. He was disinvited from the Oscar.
They just never invited him.
Never invited. That's what I mean. He was not invited. Right. He didn't have the invitation revoked. He was never invited in the first place to the Oscar party for his agency, and then he fired them. But here's an example of just what a bad guy he is. So Steve-O is sober. I believe he's 16 years sober, according to this video that he did on the Patrick Bet-David show. Or maybe this is his own show, but he's talking to Patrick Bet-David here. And he got an invite to appear on Bill Maher's Club Random podcast. But because he's 16 years sober, he had a certain request that any man of any decency would fulfill. No problem. Not Bill Maher. So let's take a look.
A clean and sober guy. Like, it's very important that I maintain my sobriety.
How long have you been?
Approaching 16 years.
Get out of here.
Yes.
I knew it was. I knew you had. I didn't know it was 16 years.
I'm about to be sweet
Good
16.
for you,
coming
bro.
up on
Congratulations.
It. Thank you very much. And there's nothing, like, really, there's nothing that I value more than my sobriety. There's nothing more that I protect than my recovery, and I found it kind of upsetting when the Bill Maher podcast, which I saw you on, reached out, and they his thing is he smokes pot the whole time while he interviews people, and I said, hey, I'd happily go on there, but could he, while I'm on, out of respect for my sobriety, could he refrain from smoking
and he
pot?
Said no.
He said no. That's a deal breaker.
Wow.
And Mike Tyson's podcast is called Hotboxing. Like the whole point, like, be real. All of these prolific potheads, I've been on their shows, and it wasn't so important to them to blow marijuana smoke in my face.
I did not know that.
For Bill Maher, it was a deal breaker, and I found, and maybe that's why, whenever. You kind of see through the lens. So I watched you and the way you spoke to it. I could probably see him say the most innocuous thing and find it insulting.
you know.
Yeah. What a bad person. Really. What a low quality human being.
What a fucking scumbag. Like, who does that? But it seems like him. No. Yes. If you can't come and play by my rules, you're not for my show.
Yeah. Listen, okay. Your sobriety is your business. Don't tell me I have to adjust my behavior for your benefit. That's over the line. That's crossing a line, okay? You could absolutely see him doing that. Yep. And it just speaks to the fucking immaturity. Like, what are you, 18? If I can't smoke pot, you can't hang out with me? Like, what the fuck is that? An adult? How old is he? He's got to be almost 70 by now. An adult, a senior citizen is asked to lay off the booze and the weed for 2 hours, and he's like, no, I'm not doing that. That's your problem. You want to come in, you want to be featured on my show, you have to expose yourself to something that you have been steadfastly avoiding for your own benefit for the last 16 years. Otherwise, you're not invited. And the other thing, when you watch Bill Maher's shows, it is amazing. What's amazing to me is, for a guy who's been drinking and smoking his whole life, the guy is a total lightweight. By 20 minutes in, he's ripped. He's ripped. He can't hold his liquor.
You sure he's not playing it for the camera?
No. He slurs his words. Yes, he starts talking like a moron, like a half hour into every show. And it's like, Jesus, you've been doing this for probably almost 50 years now. I'm assuming you started as a teenager, and you still can't hold your liquor at all. Like, you still are like slurring your words 20 minutes into a podcast when you have a few sips and a few puffs. But yeah, what an asshole. What an asshole. Just zero empathy, totally arrogant. And you're right. It fits his personality. That's what drew me to this. Like, if there's one guy who would do that,
it would be Bill Maher. You know, I hate to say this, but it kind of ties back to when we did the Dinks segment. Now, I feel like I can say this because I fall into this category. So, you know, I'm not punching out at somebody, other people. This has been my observation. This has been my life experience. The responsibilities that you take on in life define you. And while there are exceptions, people who do not raise kids remain immature fundamentally. There's just a kind of dimension of character and temperament and personality that you gain through the rearing of children that a lot of people, when they don't do it, they just never mature in that way. You know, I mean, the million decisions that you have to make in raising kids, it defines you. It defines you. And I think, exactly. You describe this guy behaving like a teenager. Well, he's never had to not. He's never been responsible for anybody but himself. So he's not used to having to think outside of his own needs and interests in that way.
He's also been mostly single his whole life. We're going to talk about this at the live show, I think. But he pays porn stars to have sex with him, and he asks them to fuck him slowly and kiss him like they love him because he's an old man who's never loved or been loved. He's just a lonely, bitter asshole.
Right. He wants the girlfriend experience.
Yeah, wants the girlfriend experience. Yeah, just a real fucking nasty guy. And, perhaps we wouldn't go after him like this if he wasn't such a Zionist as well, such an unrepentant asshole. But yeah, that is just like, how fucking immature are you that you can't say no? Like, I just don't understand that. There was a story about Penn Jillette told about Christopher Hitchens, because Hitchens was a big boozer, and I don't think Penn Jillette has ever drank. He's always just had a real aversion to the stuff. So Christopher Hitchens shows up at his house one night with a bottle of Jack Daniels. They're going to watch a movie or something, and Penn asks him, he says, listen, I don't mean to insult you, but I've never had booze in my house. Like, I would appreciate it if you leave it outside. Like, I don't want to be around it. And so Hitchens busted his balls a little bit.
But it's not that he is sober. It's just,
no, I don't think he's ever drank.
Just doesn't like it.
He just has some hang up about it where he just doesn't want it around him.
Like Trump.
Who knows? Yeah, like Trump. Well, Trump's brother died of alcohol-related illness, so I think that's what triggered that in Trump. But Hitchens says, are you serious? He says, yeah, no, I've never had it in my house. I know it's probably not the most rational thing, but I really don't like being around it. So Hitchens leaves it on the porch. He says, I'll pick it out on the way out. He gave him a hug, and they walked in. That's how an adult handles a situation like that. No, as a condition of being in my presence, you have to put up with my habits. Even in this case, it's not even like some weird hang up. The guy's 16 years sober. Like, the guy really takes that very seriously. Right. It's hugely important to his mental and physical health. Yeah.
In life, you don't stay in the same place. You get better or you get worse. If you don't address the defects in your character, they are not improved by time. They are greatly accentuated by time. And Bill Maher has clearly had no interest in learning or growing over the years. He's only gotten worse. I was actually, when I went out with Negi the other day, because when we first started, Bill Maher hadn't gone quite as far off the beam as he has now. So we did a positive coverage here and there of a couple of his monologues. And he mentioned that, and I said, we have not done a positive Bill Maher segment. I could not tell you the last time, because he just got worse and worse over time, to the point that even if here and there he makes a good point, it's almost irrelevant when you look at the context.
Well, yeah. And, he exposed himself in the same way that Douglas Murray, Sam Harris, Barry Weiss have all exposed themselves. We're like, pushing back against the excesses of woke discourse is not necessarily bigoted. But what this group of people who we've just mentioned is that have really shown in recent months is that in their case they are bigoted. In their case that is where they come from. Yeah, that is absolutely where they're coming from.
Yes, and if you are an honest actor who's making an honest argument against that, not because you're bigoted, but because you actually think it's making things worse, it's terrible to have people like that on the team because they give so much ammunition to the other side of the argument.
Right.
Well, look at them. Right? What do you mean it's not racism? Look at Bill Maher, like he's ready to start dropping the bombs himself.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. All right. Hobbs 45. The Chinese have always believed that opium is the opiate of the masses. Thanks, Hobbs. Hobbs got jokes always. Martin R. That kid has moxie. Jeffrey Dahmer. Thank you very much. Derek P says, "Hey, Keaton, don't sleep on Staten, Italy. They got a few base people over there." I'm sure they do, but I don't believe that, statistically, there's more pro-Palestine Democratic Party revolt over there than there is in the Bronx. That's why I doubted the veracity of that guy's numbers. I have to be honest with you.
Okay, Staten Island, of any place left in New York, is most like Flushing was when I was growing up. There are very few pockets quite like that. Staten Island is full of firefighters and cops. It's still like that.
Right. Yeah, no, that's my experience too. Abdallah El Khafif, thank you for the €20. Love you guys. Keep up the great work. Cheers from Germany. We already have 6 tickets sold to our future Berlin show. So if you want to commit to 2 more, you can get us up to 8 and then 42 more. We'll do a show in Berlin. So let us know about that. Thank you very much. Here's somebody. Who is this guy? Anybody know who this guy is? Anybody ever hear Jimmy Dore? Jimmy Dore, thanks for the $9.99.
Who is that?
I have the show on.
Did that guy used to play Comedy Cellar?
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. I have the show on while I'm flying today. Looking forward to getting some good sleep. Boring. Yeah, we are the Lex Friedman to Jimmy Dore. We are the.
We're just. He started out watching RBN, and we just looped in there.
Yeah, YouTube feeds it to Jimmy Dore around nap time when they figure it's nap time. Just gives you some help there. All right, folks, we'll do our Patron scroll and we'll plug our live show tickets. By the way, tickets are on sale to our live show. Why don't we just plug that right now while I'm on this? We are about half sold out, 50%. Sold out for our live shows in New York City. Yeah, we'll be banned in Germany like Roger Waters. Yeah, probably. But you can go to dudissidents.com/day show and get tickets to the 2 p.m. matinee at the Producers Club on 44th Street in Hell's Kitchen, right near Times Square. Convenient to all major transportation, so it's very close to Grand Central, very close to Penn Station, very close to the Port Authority if you're coming in from out of town. Or you can go to dudissidents.com/night show and get tickets for the 7 p.m. show. Like I said, both shows have sold about even so far. They're both about half full. So with 2 months to go, we're expecting full crowds. So make sure you get those tickets if you want them. Because those are small venues. There's no standing room. We can't really fudge it. There's barely sitting room in these venues. Never mind standing room. So make sure you get those if you want them. And we would love to see you all for that live show. That is June 9th, 2 p.m. and 7 p.m. Okay, Russell has a Tesla update for you all.
All right.
And while you get started, I am going to duck out for one moment. I'll be right back.
Fair enough.
You have the slideshow up? Because I know you had to reset your stuff. There it is.
Hang on. There we go. All right. So, hey, far be it from me to take a victory lap already, but some of you might remember last year I made a prediction about Tesla sales dropping, and I was right about that. This year, for our end-of-year predictions, I said that Tesla would not only continue to fall, but the story of Tesla would start to come apart. The narrative around Tesla would start to come apart. Now, because Tesla is one of these cult stocks, not only have I gotten some pushback from aficionados of Tesla and of Elon, one of our patrons, if you're at a certain tier, I think it's a $30 tier, you get a phone call with us periodically. Keaton set that up. I'm not sure about the details, but he spent a lot of that phone call arguing, in a nice way, my Tesla thesis. We got to call that guy because I want to talk to him now. So Tesla quarterly deliveries decline for the first time in nearly 4 years. Tesla on Tuesday posted a decline in quarterly deliveries for the first time in nearly 4 years and missed Wall Street estimates, a performance some described as ugly, as price cuts failed to stir demand in a highly competitive market. Shares of the Elon Musk-led company were down 5.2% at 166.08 on Tuesday afternoon, losing about $30 billion in market value. The shares have fallen about 33% so far this year. After years of rapid sales growth that helped turn Tesla into the world's most valuable automaker, the company is bracing for a slowdown in 2024. The EV maker has been slow to refresh its aging models as high interest rates have sapped consumer appetite for big-ticket items, and rivals in China, the world's largest auto market, are rolling out cheaper models. Tesla's deliveries declined by 8.5% in the first quarter to 386,810 vehicles from a year ago, and the company produced 433,371 vehicles during the period. Wall Street had expected Tesla to deliver 454,200 vehicles, according to the average projection of 18 analysts polled by Visible Alpha. The last time the automaker posted a sales fall was in the second quarter of 2020 when the COVID-19 pandemic forced Tesla to shut down production. Tesla attributed the drop in volumes partly to efforts to prepare its Fremont, California factory to handle increased production of the updated Model 3 and to shutdowns at its Berlin plant due to the impact of the Red Sea conflict and an arson attack. But Tesla produced 46,000 more vehicles than it sold in the first quarter, signaling softer demand, analysts said. The vehicle inventory, quote, confirms that beyond the known production bottleneck, there may also be a serious demand issue, Deutsche Bank analyst Emmanuel Rosner wrote in a note. Tesla has faced intense competition in China from local players including market leader BYD, which overtook the U.S. company as the world's largest EV maker in the fourth quarter, and new entrant Xiaomi. The market value of Xiaomi, a smartphone and appliance maker, jumped by as much as $4 billion on Tuesday with the release of its sporty debut car, an EV priced lower than Tesla's Model 3. Gene Munster, managing partner at Deepwater Asset Management, called the quarter ugly for Tesla, blaming high interest rates and cooling excitement around EVs. He remained upbeat, however, on the company's long-term prospects. CEO Musk's persona, his tilt to right-wing politics, and his polarizing public statements are also turning away some potential Tesla customers in the United States, according to surveys and experts. Who could have seen that coming? Tesla separately faces a host of its own image problems, including lawsuits and investigations involving its autopilot driver assistance system and allegations first reported by Reuters that it rigged the in-dash driving range estimates in its cars. Reuters reported in December that the automaker blamed drivers for chronic failures of suspension and steering parts it long knew were defective. Tesla called the report on suspension problems wildly misleading and has blamed drivers for not watching the road when their cars crash on autopilot. The automaker has said it is not aware that any ongoing investigation has found wrongdoing. That's lawyer speak, by the way. We're not aware. They didn't deny it. They're not aware. Wedbush Securities analyst Dan Ives called Tuesday's results an unmitigated disaster and termed them a seminal moment for Tesla. Quote, this was a train wreck into a brick wall quarter for Musk and Company, he wrote in a research note. In January, Tesla also warned of notably lower sales growth this year as it focuses on the production of its next generation electric vehicle. Okay, so there's a little bit more to this, but how did I know? It's not rocket science. Who buys a Tesla? Alyssa Milano buys a Tesla. Elon has made himself second only to Trump in figures that libs absolutely despise. Right. He took away their Twitter. He took their Twitter from them. So they're what self-respecting lib is going to go around with a Tesla now, right? So who's going to buy it? Conservatives, they want their combustion engines, right? They're not going to buy it. So it was inevitable that Tesla was going to fall off a cliff. You saw softening in demand last year, and because it takes some time for this to work through the pipeline because people pre-ordered these cars and they have down payments on these cars. Now you're seeing the lib effect. They are not going to buy a Tesla. And some people, when I brought this up, talked about the market in China. China's got their own EV industry. You think Tesla is going to be able to compete with China's EV manufacturing in their own country? So, and also something the article does mention that might be worth doing a segment on at some point. The whole EV market is cooling. It's not just Tesla. Now, this was another point I made because I said, full disclosure, I'm a, fairly long time Ford investor, a couple years. This is why, because when I looked at the landscape, I said, you know what? I think that Ford, because they have such brand loyalty, it doesn't matter which way the EV sector goes. Ford is fine because they have such loyalty in their trucks. Now, that's not a statement of Ford quality. Everybody I know who has a Ford has fucking problems with the Ford. They wind up having to take it back. Doesn't matter. They have that brand loyalty. So if you look at what's happening with Ford at the same exact time this is happening with Tesla, Q1 vehicle sales climbed 6.8%. Hybrid sales climbed 42%. By the way, this is not to be construed as financial advice. Ford U.S. vehicle sales were up 6.8% in Q1 to 508,023. Led by sales of trucks and SUVs, Ford hybrid sales set a record quarter of 38,421 in Q1, up 42% year over year. The Maverick Hybrid was the number one selling hybrid truck in the U.S., up 77% from a year ago with sales of 19,660. Sales of electric vehicles rose 86% in Q1 to 20,223, making Ford the second best-selling EV brand after Tesla. Mustang Mach-E sales were up 77% to 9,589 year over year, while F-150 Lightning sales increased 80% to 7,743. All right, so this is the thing. If people in the heartland are convinced to go to electric trucks, they're not buying Teslas. They're going to buy Fords. So in the end, Ford was always most likely to pick up that business if such a shift in consumer habits actually occurred. Now, it's looking like the EV thing is kind of rolling back and losing its momentum, but Ford is covered because they have that brand loyalty on the combustion. So all of this to say, here comes Ron. Here comes Ron DeSantis.
Yeah,
here he comes. No, that prediction was so disastrously wrong that I have to rub this one in now.
Right, you gotta dig this one in. Well, the irony is that the libs are boycotting Tesla, but not X. Like they still have all of their Twitter handles, but they're just not buying the cars because
exactly. They're taking it out on them this way.
Teslas are replaceable to them, and Twitter isn't, because none of these alternate things like
They've tried.
Mastodon and Blue Sky, none of them have any people on them. So they can't give that up. So they have to give up their Teslas to compensate. And there is competition there. I just want to put this chat up because it's funny. Nocturnal Human says Fords have monthly recalls. I just had my Ford van inspected. And there's like 6 recalls on it. It's like they comes back with a huge one sheet of recalls. It's funny because
I'm not making an argument that Ford is a better company or better quality. I'm purely making a market argument.
Yeah, no, but it's true. They do have a lot of like weird, quirky things wrong with them. Like none of the recalls on my van are safety related, but like it's weird. Like the back passenger side door doesn't open from the inside anymore because the sensor is fucked. You got to open it from the outside.
It's always shit like that. Yep.
Yeah. Oh no, I'm sorry. It opens from the inside, not the outside. If it didn't open from the inside, that would be a safety issue, obviously. But the other thing is like when I park it. If the radio is on, the radio won't turn off unless I open the passenger side door and close it again. The sensors, like those kind of like weird system features, are all fucked up. So yeah, they do have a lot of quirky things wrong with them.
All the time. It's not an argument. Oh, it's a better company. Although I do believe Reuters reporting, because that sounds like exactly the kind of scumbag shit Elon would pull, that they know they've got problems with suspension, but blame the driver for driving it wrong. Like, that totally sounds like Elon. But yeah, no, Ford's got its own problems. It's not a question of it being much better quality than Tesla, although the Cybertruck looks like it's going to be a disaster. But really, it's just where these two brands are positioned in the market. And after Elon took over Twitter, the libs cried out, "You did it! You murdered my misery!"
Right, yeah.
They're very upset with him. No self-respecting lib is going to buy a Tesla, and conservatives don't want a Tesla. So where's your market?
Yeah. He kind of boxed himself into an unfortunate corner there. All right, let's give a shout out to the backbone of our show, our Patreon, Substack, and Locals supporters. Thank you all very much for your support. If you want to join the party, you can go to patreon.com/DoDissidents. You can also join our Substack at DoDissidents.substack.com or join our Locals, DoDissidents.locals.com. The Locals is easy to join if you're watching on Rumble. We got about 1,000 of you guys in there now. It's a bright red button that says join right under the video player. For just $5 a month, you get your name up in lights here on the show credits. You also get call-in access to our weekly post-show Q&As, which are every Sunday night. You get access to 2 patron-exclusive streams per month, plus you will have live streaming access to our live shows. So when we're doing the live shows in New York City on June 9th, we're going to do 2 shows. Both of those will be streaming exclusively to our paid members. So that's a whole lot of perks for just $5 a month. So if you go to patreon.com/DoDissidents, DoDissidents.substack.com, or you can join our Locals, DoDissidents.locals.com. That gets you access to all of those perks. And once again, tickets are in fact on sale for the live shows right now. They are about halfway gone. So if you do want to come to our live show in New York City, don't miss out. DoDissidents.com/day show for the day show and /night show for the night show. I don't know if we have any mods in the YouTube chat, but if we do, if you could post those links to the chat right now, that would be amazing. Please and thank you. If our mods are here this morning, we would appreciate that. So that's DoDissidents.com /night show. That takes you to the ticketing page for the 7 p.m. and /day show. That takes you to the ticketing page for the 2 p.m. Those are going to be loads of fun. We can't wait for those, and we can't wait to see you all there. All righty. Let's take some more super chats, and then we'll move on. On behalf of Freeloaders community, I just want to say we love your show. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Named my taco. Thanks for the $2. Kynan Thistlethwaite sounds like a Sauron protester. Oh, yeah, because he has a Lord of the Rings name. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, he kind of does. He kind of does.
Thistlethwaite, yep.
Maybe I'll steal that name for my novel.
Yeah, that is a good pen name, actually.
That really is.
That really is not bad for
I knew it. I knew a guy always said, "I'm going to steal this for a character." It's the best name I've ever heard in my life. Xavier Redigan.
Oh yeah,
that's a fucking name.
Xavier Redigan. That is good. Dodger 12. I am the $2 Jimmy Dore. I make joke, you laugh. Ha 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 ha. Ha!
You got it. You got it.
Thank you, Dodger. Let's see. What do we got? We got some Rumble rants that I got to catch up on too here, right? Bonzo Beans. MLK Jr. assassinated 56 years ago today. That's right, April 4th. Review his Beyond Vietnam speech sometime soon. That's a good idea. That is actually a very good idea.
Well, you wanted to start that flashback series, and it was doing well.
It was doing well. We should redo that.
You did the Hitchens one, right? Didn't we do another one?
Yeah. Well, that all got derailed once, we got this Jimmy Dore gig. He really messed us up. He really screwed. He ruined the show by inviting us. He fucked us up.
I mean, yeah. Well, you can't trust anyone in this business. He gave us this gig to sabotage us.
Yeah, right.
He's playing
the flashback
He's playing
segment.
4D chess.
Yeah, he found the flashback segments boring, and so he did this so that we would abandon the flashback segment and all of our regular recurring segments. But yeah, we should do the flashback segment again. We should have one recurring weekly thing for every slot. Like Tuesday will be flashback day.
It's a good
Wednesday
idea.
will be this day. That would be
we're gonna start
good.
doing meme of the week.
Yeah, meme of the week.
Exactly.
But yes, we should revisit the Beyond Vietnam speech. I wanted to do a whole piece back in the audio days on his letter from a Birmingham jail. But yeah, we should do the Beyond Vietnam speech. Warren, thank you for the $1. Keaton, what make and model mic are you using? We both have the same now. This is the Shure MV7. The Shure MV7.
You know what I noticed? Everybody uses these.
Yeah.
Everybody. Maybe it's a different model of it, but they all look exactly like this mic.
Well, the funny thing is, what I've heard is I think the M7U are the ones that are a little better than this. I think Jimmy's got the M7U, and if you notice, the cone is a little taller. But what some people do is they'll buy this model since it's cheaper, and they'll put a taller cone on it, and apparently if you do that, it sounds the same. But I don't. My ears are not that sensitive to be able to tell the difference. I did set my settings so I could speak further away from the mic, since some people have requested that. But when I did that, this is when you were fixing your internet, they could hear my kids screaming in the next room, so I had to turn it back.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So that works when I have an empty house here, but it is spring break, so the kids are home from school this week, they are around.
He is risen.
Yes, exactly. He is risen. Okay, beautiful. We will move on here to segment number 4. We want to thank friend and contributor to the show, Tusker, for sending us this video last minute. I literally saw this for the first time 20 minutes before the show started. But here is Jose Andres, founder of World Central Kitchen, whose aid workers were, of course, killed in the Israeli airstrike a few days ago. Here he is on CBS saying he thinks it was intentional. So this is obviously huge news coming from him. Let's take a look at this video.
And team members between the specialty security people we have, 3 British individuals and 3 international crew plus 1 Palestinian, that they were targeted systematically, car by car. And this happened over more than 1.5, 1.8 kilometers. So this was not just a bad luck situation where, we dropped the bomb in the wrong place or no, this was over 1.5, 1.8 kilometers with a very defined humanitarian convoy that had signs in the top, in the roof, a very colorful logo that we are obviously very proud of, but that's very clear who we are and what we do. But what I know is that we were targeted deliberately, non-stop, until everybody was dead in this convoy. That cannot be the role of an army. That cannot be the role of an army that has hundreds of drones above Gaza in any single moment. Humanitarians and civilians should never be paying the consequences of war. This is a basic principle of humanity. At the time, this looks like it's not a war against terrorism anymore. Seems this is a war against humanity itself. You cannot be destroying every building. You cannot be destroying every hospital, every school. You cannot be targeting humanitarian. You cannot be targeting children. You cannot be fighting the basis of what humanity should be standing for.
Wow.
That's it, man. When you have that guy, as we will get into, who is, far from a fiery anti-establishment radical, saying something like that, and when you have CBS airing it, it's over. It's over. It is over for Israel. Israel is never going to be able to function as a member of the community of nations again. Sanctions, the end of diplomatic relations. In the end, as countries process what Israel has done and is doing, it is going to be the end of Israel as anything but a rogue state.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, our next 3 segments are all about that, all set up to make that point. And it's true. Our super chatter said it earlier. I think there is an element of truth to this. There's once Europeans are targeted and hit and killed, it obviously hits a little different to a certain cohort of commentators. Not talking about Jose Andres, but in future segments, we will see what we mean by that. But this is an important thing to share with you guys. Max Blumenthal tweeted out, a clearly targeted Israeli strike on an aid group led by a State Department culinary ambassador, which coordinated its movements with the Israeli army, all designed to end its aid operations and perpetuate mass starvation in Gaza. Now watch the Biden administration minimize this. So this is what Max tweeted out right after this airstrike happened. Why? Because the Gray Zone actually wrote a piece late last month, a few days before this happened, saying U.S. State Department's favorite celebrity chef builds Gaza aid dock with stolen rubble. After years of accusing Russia of using food as a weapon in its conflict with Ukraine, State Department culinary ambassador Jose Andres is working with the Israeli government to supplant UNRWA as the main supplier of aid to northern Gaza. State Department-linked Spanish celebrity chef Jose Andres has emerged as the U.S. government's preferred conduit for aid to enter Gaza following the Biden administration's decision to suspend funding to the enclave's main supplier of food, aid, and education, the UNRWA. The operation appears designed to serve as a stopgap measure to provide minimal quantities of food to Gaza's famine-stricken population until the U.S. military finishes building a pier in the Mediterranean Sea, and a shadowy contractor run by U.S. Marine and CIA officials is able to implement an aid program called Blue Beach Plan. Andres' organization, World Central Kitchen, has already finished constructing its own jetty, which was made from the rubble heaps in Gaza, a decision that virtually guaranteed the building materials contain the remains of humans killed by Israeli bombings. Immediately before their recent pivot to Gaza, Andres WCK spent several weeks providing meals to Israeli soldiers following October 7th. On October 16th, when Spain's then Minister for Social Rights, Ione Belarra, I hope I said that right, condemned Israel for conducting a genocide in Gaza, Andres immediately jumped to Tel Aviv's defense and demanded her resignation. You, as minister, have to first recognize that the Hamas attack against civilians is a terrorist act and that Israel is defending its citizens. Then you can ask for restraint and respect for the lives of civilians in Gaza, the U.S. government-aligned chef bellowed. So you see, this is, look, the point of this is not to launch any kind of attack against this guy or the organization. The point of this is to simply point out these guys were considered some of the quote-unquote good guys, not only by the United States, by the State Department, by the CIA, but by Israel. Israel said WCK are among the good guys. They're not UNRWA. So part of the reason why this guy is so certain that they were targeted is because they were in constant communication with the authorities. So that's the point. I don't mean to dig that up as a dig, on the organization now. That's really not the time or place. But it's important to point that out because one of the reasons why he is so certain, I would argue the reason why he is as certain as he is that this was deliberate, is because they were in constant and close communications with the Israeli military. Even during the attack, they called into the IDF, hey, we've just been fired upon. What's going on? And they hit them again. And they kept firing upon them until 7 of them were killed. So when this guy is coming out and saying this was deliberate, as Russell said, it's over. That's case closed right there, as far as I could see.
Right. When you've lost somebody like this, the kind of person that they would put on MSNBC, confident that they're not going to hear anything that's going to make their brain dead audience have to think for a second. And you lost that guy. You lost that guy. Who didn't you lose now? Who haven't you lost? And it will be very interesting to see the journey he takes. Like, does this really swing him completely in the opposite direction? Does he become a crusader against Israel, against the Zionist project, against the IDF, now that he's seen its true face? Think of the
American Empire more broadly. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to show this. Here's him in Ukraine, right, with the Ukrainian president. So, like, this is not a rogue actor. This is not someone who's out of the loop. Right. Sorry.
Exactly. Think of how psychopathic the Israeli government and military are, that it looks like they made a strategic decision to attack them specifically because it would scare off all the others, particularly because they are so connected, because that's going to make every other aid organization feel they're not safe. If they got hit, who won't get hit? And mission accomplished. We did that story yesterday. All the aid organizations have turned their ships back and canceled aid.
Yes, and if this was an intentional strike, which is a virtual certainty, according to the founder of the organization, a fairly conservative British commentator who we're going to play in the next segment, if this was an intentional strike, think of what that means. That means that they were willing to withstand this real backlash in terms of global sentiment in order to keep aid out because they know that they can afford to sour the world on them as long as the U.S. has its back. And as we're going to see a little bit later in the show, now you have very establishment-aligned neocon, hawkish, Bush-era Republicans saying, this is enough. This has to stop. And what an indictment that is of Joe Biden and his team, that they are so flat-footed on this, that they are still refusing to change any policy, as we'll see. I mean, that is astounding, because at this point, this whole thing is just going to implode. Like, I can't see anything in the future except for this Biden White House. Just the ground is just going to collapse out from underneath it. They're getting it from all sides now. All sides now.
Well, one of the breaking stories today that I was looking at this morning is one of the Israeli representatives in a Zoom call with Blinken and Biden started screaming because their plan that they proposed was to move 1 million Palestinians into tents to the north of Rafah. And they were like, well, have you thought about where you're sourcing all those tents? Have you thought about how you're getting food and water to 1 million people in these tents? Apparently, the guy started screaming at them. This is what impunity Israel feels it has. Screaming at the country that your entire existence depends on. We cut off military and economic aid to Israel. They will be gone in a month. Month.
Yeah. And now you have, like I said, very establishment-aligned people saying that that's what has to happen. That's what has to happen. So, yeah, I mean, this was really a breaking point. I mean, there have been a lot of watershed moments, but this, the most severe of them all, because it's undeniable. I mean, I think it's been undeniable forever, but the image of a hole in the roof of the car where the Aid Kitchen logo is, I mean, that's a smoking gun right there. I mean, that is a smoking gun. There's no denying that is an intentional strike, especially when it's not just one car, 3 different cars.
Of course.
3 different cars.
Well, this is what I've been saying. You know, they won't say it out loud, but Israel has decided enough is enough. We're going to wipe them out, and history can judge the rightness of our actions. That's what's happening here.
But that judgment is happening right now. So I want to move into this segment here. Here's Richard Hadley on Good Morning Britain. I hope I'm saying that name correctly. But this is, British mainstream daytime talk show. Here are some very harsh words for the Israeli strike on the WCK convoy. He calls it point blank an execution.
Which is what it was, effectively. This execution of 7 aid workers feels like some sort of watershed this morning, doesn't it? Because this time yesterday, as the news was breaking, the general assumption was, before the details came through, that it was probably some sort of awful collateral damage, that these workers had been killed incidentally.
That wasn't the general assumption. That was your assumption. That was the assumption of people like you who have given them the benefit of the doubt every day for the last 6 months until, like I said, as Pat Donahue put in his super chat, until some Europeans were killed. I mean, I've thought of that too. Look, welcome. Glad you're here. But did it take this? Apparently it did take this. Apparently that is what it took.
Of course it did. Well, you remember the reporter. I got to look up the name of that reporter because this comes up a lot, especially in this context, who said the soft part out loud on camera about Ukraine. Yes. It's just they look like us. You're just not used to seeing
You're not used to seeing this kind of violence amongst people who look like us, right?
Yeah.
Against people who look like us.
Yep.
They could be us. Exactly. That kind of thing. Exactly. Let's keep going.
Some other kind of conflict. But now we know that it was extremely targeted. The first vehicle was hit in a small convoy. Some of the workers survived and managed to get out and get into another vehicle. That moved off. That was hit. Then there was one third vehicle that was still proceeding, and about a kilometer later, that was hit. So they were hit 3 separate times. And just look at this. I mean, this is bullseye aiming. Absolutely no accidental collateral damage here at all. This is an execution.
Absolutely no collateral damage here at all. This is an execution. That could be the image that undoes Israel. And it is shameful that it took that to undo Israel when we've seen literally thousands of videos and images of Palestinian children, Palestinian women, Palestinian dads holding their dead babies, just devastated. Thousands of those images didn't evoke this kind of response from these guys. It took this to do it. Now, like I said, look, whatever gets you there, these are emergency circumstances. We need all hands on deck, so I don't mean to quibble. But if we're looking, this is going to be the image that ultimately seals Israel's fate as a pariah on the world stage because it's a smoking gun right there. That's the photo of the year so far, no doubt about that. A hole right through the roof of the car with the logo, shot right through the logo, World Central Kitchen, big, bold letters. And this is why we mentioned in the last segment that Max Blumenthal piece exposing their ties to the United States government, to the State Department, and to the IDF. They were giving meals to Israeli soldiers. They were feeding Israeli soldiers in October. And so you're telling me they didn't know that logo? They didn't know what that was? Of course they knew what that was. And they fired on it directly, like this guy says. Here, don't take my word for it. Take Newsman's word for it.
3 separate times. And just look at this. I mean, this is bullseye aiming. Absolutely no accidental collateral damage here at all. This is an execution.
Aiming, absolutely no collateral damage here at all. This is an execution. That is according to the mainstream British daytime TV talk news program. That's not us saying it. It's not Max Blumenthal saying it. It's not a random social media handle saying it. That is now a mainstream opinion that this was a deliberate, targeted murder. And it's too much for any of these people to be able to deny at this point. Who is left to make excuses for this? Who? This is why Caitlin Johnston warned all you idiots at the beginning, be careful what you say, because if you defend Israel now, you're going to end up defending shit like this or looking very stupid. And good on people who are willing to look stupid, who are willing to, at this point, say they were wrong. I applaud you for doing that. That takes guts to do. For those who are still not able to do this, I don't know what it's going to take. But thankfully, there aren't very many of you left. There really aren't.
I've mentioned that I've seen most of the rabid Zionists I know who are not getting paid, who are not cutouts, shut up. And now I am even starting to see some of them disown it, which, as far as I'm concerned, yes, welcome to the party, but I see a little self-interest in that as well. So I'm not all that sympathetic.
No, that's not what I meant. I just meant, look,
but
we need opinion to tank.
I know what you meant. I'm talking about something completely different. But I'm seeing like Jewish Zionists starting to say, not in my name.
Right.
People who started this with Am Yisrael High finally starting to come around to, this is disgraceful. We have to stop this slaughter, which again, you can litigate this being crocodile tears, but it does indicate a sea change in the conversation. When you're losing those people, when those people are coming out in public and not afraid of the stink eye they might get it next time they go to the synagogue, when they're coming out in public, as you say, who do you have left? Who do you have left who's not being paid by Israel?
It's just so frustrating. It's so frustrating because, look, I knew more about this than I knew about Russia-Ukraine, but on the day of the Russian invasion, I said this could have been avoided. This should have been prevented. Why is it that Americans are so wrong so often, always, really, always, when it comes to these kinds of issues? Why don't we as a population learn? After 9/11, we had the world on our side. George W. Bush had a 90% favorability rating. My father, a Bolshevik, a communist, was flying an American flag on the radio antenna of his car after 9/11. That shows you got some unity. When my dad's putting an American flag on his car, that means you have a unified country. That means you have a lot of goodwill. Right. Look at how quickly we burned through that. Look at how quickly we burned through that. That is not a lesson to you to question these things on day one, not on day 100 or 200 or 300. You have to question these things on day one. Otherwise, it's too late. It's too late. You've got 40,000 dead now. It's too late now. What are you going to do at this point? At what point will this population learn the lessons, not of 100 years ago history, very, very recent history? If the squandering of goodwill after 9/11 did not instill a skepticism in people, I don't know what will. I don't know what will. Maybe this will, because it all went so south so fast. We can hope. We can hope, and we could try our best. That's part of why we do shows like this, to try our best to instill in people, don't keep falling for the same bullshit over and over again, because it's not just bullshit. This gets people killed by the tens of thousands, by the hundreds of thousands. And it has to stop. It has to stop.
You have to remember, people will not defy the establishment of their society until the cost of conforming to it becomes greater than the cost of challenging it. Most people will go along with the narrative of the ruling class of their society until it's causing them too much pain, financial, social, philosophical. It has to be very grave mismatch between the interests of the people and the interests and proclamations of the establishment before you can really get the core non-player characters to start questioning their programming. I wrote an article about this. All societies depend on the people who don't think. Those are the people who keep it going, right? They're like ants. They get the signal in their antenna, and that's it. They repeat whatever comes in over the antenna. It's not until you force those people to start to wake up that you've really lost cultural cohesion and stability. Even if they're a minority, they just have to be a large enough minority.
Yes, indeed. Let's take some super chats, and then we'll do our next segment here. Excuse me, Nocturnal Human. Thanks for the $1. Tell Jimmy if Mike McRae is capable, I'd like to hear an argument between Steve-O and Whoopi. Yeah, that might be fun.
That would be funny.
Well, Russell would have to play one of the parts, or Jimmy would have to play one of the parts, but that would be a fun one. Winnetou Lever, thanks for the $4. FYI, the Washington Post is reporting that Biden gave the green light to send more weapons to Israel after word of the World Central Kitchen massacre reached Washington. Moral leaders, huh?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't doubt that.
I'll take a look at that for tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, our next segment kind of hints at that. Didn't have that exact information in there, but you'll see what we get to here. Our Ganji, thanks for the donation. When you're a hammer, Israel, everything else is a nail. Everything else. Yes.
Everything else is Hamas.
Yes, exactly. Okay, let's go to Julia M.R. Thank you for the $4.99. Consider interviewing writer C.J. Hopkins being prosecuted in Germany for using a certain symbol satirically. Oh, wow. Initially acquitted, prosecutor appealing. Wow.
Yes. I know the story that you're talking about.
Steve Wolfbrandt's, when the humanoid robots come online, Tesla stock will soar. Be patient. That's good. Will S. Elon learned from Jobs. Product's not faulty. You're using it wrong, bro. But unlike Jobs, Elon wasn't there at Tesla's inception. Android forever. Thank you, Will. Appreciate that very much. Okay, let's do our next segment. We might have time for two more, actually. I didn't think we'd have time for two more, but it looks like we might because we're moving along pretty swimmingly today. Tight show today, folks. Tight show. Please hit that like button to get people in here this morning. We've got a great crowd, 2463 in the YouTube and Twitter and 1151 over on Rumble. That's amazing. Thank you all very much for being here. Okay, this is part 3 in this morning's Israel Coming Apart trilogy. This is a story in Politico. Biden's not changing Israel policy after deadly strike on aid workers. The Biden administration has no plans to change its policy towards Israel after the allies' forces killed 7 humanitarian aid workers. President Joe Biden was privately enraged by the deadly strike and in a public statement upbraided Israel for it, calling for accountability to those responsible and demanding more humanitarian assistance be allowed into Gaza. But 2 senior administration officials said that is as far as he and the White House will go for now. That's all we plan, said one of the officials, who, like others, was granted anonymity to speak candidly about administration planning or internal reactions. Later in the article, many officials throughout the administration were already upset by the growing number of killed civilians and aid workers, but, quote, this hits in a different way, said a U.S. official.
They're white.
That's right. They're white. This hits differently. They're white. Exactly, said a U.S. official who was granted anonymity to detail an internal reaction. Everybody loves Jose Andres in World Central Kitchen. See, they all know him. They all love him. Right? Yep. This was one of them. Israel was saying they are the good guys after they were hit. You had Israeli, I don't know, ambassadors is not the right word. Israeli spokespeople, for the IDF, like the Mark Regev type guy. There was this one guy who went up there and said, these are some of the good people. So even after the fact, they're admitting that. And it just seems like a blatantly...
There's like Israel whacked Anthony Bourdain.
Right, exactly, yeah. It just seems like a blatantly horrific and stupid mistake to do that. Concerns remain about worsening conditions inside Gaza. Officials from the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, warned in a private cable that the enclave was already experiencing famine due to the war and a lack of assistance. The level of hunger is, quote, unprecedented in modern history, reads the cable, per a HuffPost report, and it will, quote, accelerate in the weeks ahead. Okay, these couple of tweets with videos embedded are truly amazing. This is from Waleed Shahid. Morning Joe. Former Condoleezza Rice advisor and NSC, National Security Council spokesperson, Elise Jordan erupts at President Biden's unwillingness to condition weapons aid to Israel. Once again, NSC spokesperson and former aide to Condoleezza Rice, one of the architects of the disastrous, murderous George W. Bush foreign policy agenda. Here she is in response to Biden's hurt feelings and anger.
Bubbling up from behind the scenes for a while. President Biden, frankly, is furious at Prime Minister Netanyahu but yet still his administration has not conditioned weapons sales, conditioned aid. They haven't done it yet. Now, maybe this is the moment that comes. This also happens just, we think, a week or two perhaps before this Rafah offensive, which really could be a flashpoint.
Okay, I'm so sick of hearing how upset President Biden is. The buck stops with him. If he wants to stop arms sales, if he wants to stop the bombs that are indiscriminately killing civilians, he can. He has the power. We don't need him going and his aides going to reporters and talking on background about how upset they are. What happened yesterday is still going to happen. When at Mika's conference, the head of the Palestinian Red Crescent spoke, and she was incredibly moving. This was in Abu Dhabi. And she spoke about the difficulty of aid getting in the country, period, from the north or south. And she described a process that was kind of like the TSA changing the rules every single day, going through airport security. Until those checkpoints are working and aid is going through, we don't need to be giving any more arms sale or money. It needs to stop. It needs to be conditional. It's ridiculous that it's going on unchecked and unfettered, and we're sitting around and talking how upset we are while we hemorrhage billions of dollars.
It's the worst of all worlds right now for the president. The criticism looks increasingly empty. It's 6 months. We're reaching the 6 month.
That's Richard Haas. We're going to play the remainder of this in just a second because it's embedded in the second tweet. But that's incredible. That's incredible. That a Condoleezza Rice advisor would talk like that. We need to be conditioning aid. Enough is enough about these hurt feelings. That's just incredible. And I will posit this theory. Russell mentioned the dinks earlier, and I don't want to open this can of worms. Look, I'm a dad. I don't impose my values on anybody else. You know, everybody live their life exactly how they want. No judgment here either way.
Absolutely.
But
I sure as fuck have.
She had her first child 4 years ago. She's a mom of a toddler / young child. You know, she's got a 3.5, 4, whatever year old kid now. That makes these images, it cuts deeper. I mean, whenever I see a kid, you know, in rubble, I see my kid under rubble. You know, when I'm, you know, when my kid comes into bed and, you know, cuddles up next to me in the middle of the night, as happens sometimes, when he can't finish the night in his bed, I say, what if we were in a tent right now? What if we were in a tent right now and a bomb could fall out of the sky at any second and just wipe us out? Like, you think about that stuff when you're a parent, and she's a parent. And I think my theory, I don't know this, I don't know her, obviously. My theory is it gets to you on a human level. It gets to people on a human level to see this over and over and over again. And when you have a smoking gun image like this, then, you know, that can bring out the mom in a person to say, okay, this has to stop. This has to stop. And if she's saying that, come on. I mean, if she's saying that, it's over. We're going to go to Richard Haas next. But do you have anything on that?
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. It takes it out of being an abstraction. And it's, I mean, how can you not imagine the helplessness that a parent feels in that situation if you're a parent?
Yeah. Well, if you thought that was bad, here's Richard Haas. He was the guy who started speaking in that first clip. So don't forget, this is Morning Joe. This is where, like, the foreign policy jogging establishment of Washington comes to meet. Joe and Mika, they have a jogging club, right, in Washington, D.C., where politicians and media people and the heads of all these agencies come. So he is the president emeritus of the Council of Foreign Relations, Richard Haas. Doesn't get more establishment than this guy. Watch what he has to say.
While we hemorrhage billions of dollars.
It's the worst of all worlds right now for the president. The criticism looks increasingly empty. It's 6 months. We're reaching the 6 month milestone of this war. That's one fact to begin with. And two things have happened in the last few days. One is these attacks are continuing. And yet, so are U.S. arms transfers to Israel without conditions. They've been going on for 6 months. Why does Israel need 2,000-pound bombs to be used in high-density populated areas? Then, 10 days ago, what does
That's
Israel do?
That's another thing. This goes on for 3 minutes, so we'll stop a couple times. Why do they need 2,000-pound bombs in a densely populated area? That's the most obvious question in the world.
Exactly.
Most obvious question in the world.
That's why that arms shipment in particular was such a slap in the face. And it just exposes, I mean, Mike McRae, when we did the comedy segment yesterday, that was his whole thing, Biden going, I'll tell you, I'm really mad, and we're going to make sure everybody knows how mad I am. This is strategic. They leak the shit to Politico so that they can get that story in Politico to make it look like Joe Biden gives a shit.
Yes, and if there's one network and one show that they could, in normal circumstances, rely on to cover for them, it's Morning Joe on MSNBC, and it's not working. This is the floodgates just burst open. This is it.
When you told me we were doing this, that was my first question. Hang on Morning Joe?
Right.
How did they react? What did they do? And they're just letting them go. Okay.
Yep.
I'm very surprised you don't have pushback here.
Yeah, no. This is the dam has burst. I mean, if they're talking like this on Morning Joe.
On Morning Joe.
Over. Yeah.
It expropriates 2,000 acres of land in the West Bank for settlement construction. Where is the White House reaction to that? That is how you undo even the possibility, Joe was talking about it, of one day getting to a two-state solution. If you're going to have a Palestinian state, the last I checked, states are built on territory. If the territory isn't there to build it on, you can talk about two states till the cows come home. You don't have it. Where's the administration reaction to that? So at some point, the words become empty, and the Biden administration is very close to having reached a point where their criticism of Israel is too much for the same people who criticize Chuck Schumer, but it's not nearly enough to affect the course of what is going on. That is the worst of all possible worlds.
It looks weak and
right.
impotent.
That's right. He's exactly right about that. And that's what is so pathetic about how they have handled this. Or they've handled this very predictably for a Democratic administration and a Democratic Party whose ethos has become, over the past 30 years, do nothing.
Right.
Do nothing.
Right.
The way the world is now is the way it will always be. It's the only way it can be.
No, nothing will fundamentally change, remember?
Nothing will fundamentally change. Exactly. So all you can do is express your feelings about it. You can't actually change it. And, these guys here, as ghoulish as they've acted in years past, especially her, advisor to Condoleezza Rice, National Security Council, perhaps they're old school in the sense that they believe that presidents can do things. You can actually do something if you're in power. Like why is nothing happening? But the ethos of the Democratic Party is nothing ever happens. Nothing can ever happen. This is why, if we're going to start a book club, The End of History is a book we have to do, because that ethos explains all of this. The people in power are determined to maintain one world system until the world cannot handle it anymore, at which point we will all just wither away. They are resigned to the fact in their minds that none of this is in their control, and it is not in their interest to try to control it in some way and try and change course. You have total impotence here. That's what these people are saying. Why aren't you doing something? You're the president. You can act, and you're not. Now, a network like MSNBC has been the main propagator of this ethos that nothing is at all changeable. So they're getting a taste of their own medicine.
Well, and the change is not desirable, that the system is working well. We just have to tweak it.
Right.
We just have to tweak it. The only problem with the system is the meritocracy does not work when people are discriminated against. But that's it. Other than that, the whole thing works really good.
Exactly.
If you're not making money, you probably have a moral failing of some kind and you didn't do well enough in school. Other than that, there's nothing really wrong. Dude, I know people who literally went to vote for Joe Biden in New York just to get the good feeling of voting for Joe Biden. Right. Like, these people exist.
Yeah.
They do exist.
You're talking about 2 days ago in the primary?
Yeah. That literally, and not only did it, had actually made it public.
Right.
Like they're out there. But politically, what Biden is thinking is, hey, look, AIPAC is very comfortable with the Republicans anyway. That's what this comes down to. Well, if we really get hard on Israel, That's just going to drive all that AIPAC money right into the Republican Party. And that's all they really care about in the end. They don't care about genocide. They care about their political prospects and their donor funds.
Indeed. All right. There's more. The best is yet to come in this video.
In the HW administration, at the State Department.
At the White House.
At the White House. What would James Baker have done? And seriously, that's what we should be asking ourselves, because that was a moment when we were a diplomatic superpower.
So we confronted Israel. And if you remember at the time, Israel was subsidizing people leaving the Soviet Union, and they were going into the occupied territories. We basically said to Israel, we'll help these people to get out of the Soviet Union, but we're not going to subsidize their going into the West Bank. That forecloses options. We understand you may not have a Palestinian partner today, but we want to preserve the option for the day when we might be. And the administration basically said to the Israelis, you have a choice. They made their choice. There's that economic consequences. This administration has got to have some teeth in it.
So, Richard, let me put it bluntly to you. Does Benjamin Netanyahu give a damn that Joe Biden is upset, frustrated, and out?
See, they're not trying to rein these people in. They're feeding them. They're egging them on to keep going. So clearly an editorial decision was made. Okay, we have to pile on here and actually blow the whistle on the fact that this government is not doing anything in response to atrocity after atrocity after atrocity. That was clearly an editorial choice on Morning Joe, because Willie Geist will ask whatever they tell him to ask.
Sure. And I also want to make the point, if you look at the story that he just told about them imposing conditions on settlements, this is what we keep saying. Israel has been playing a 75-year long game to eliminate the Palestinian people from the territory that they consider their birthright, their God-given, literally in some cases, greater Israel, as Netanyahu has called it, according to reports, which would incorporate all of the land occupied by Palestinians currently. Okay, so the United States said you can't do this, so they didn't do it until they did it, right? They said yes, they got that United States help, they got the people out of the Soviet Union, and then eventually they put those settlements into the West Bank anyway. This is the game they've been playing. They'll say, okay, sure. And then they just wait for their moment. In the end, their project has always been to take over this entire region.
Right. No, of course. Absolutely. All right. Here's the big reveal of this segment.
Outraged by what he's seeing, and if not, what would make him give a damn?
No, he doesn't. And indeed, increasingly, he's trying to position himself as someone in front of the Israeli body politic saying, you may not like me. You may think I made a mistake on October 7th, but I'm all that stands between you and American pressure. So he doesn't care. What would he care about? He would care about damaging the relationship with Israel's most important benefactor. And that would mean the United States, I'm sorry to say, I'm sorry it's come to this, Willie, that we have to basically have some sanctioning of what Israel did. Not just the stuff that
I want to play that again. I mean, if you asked me in October, would you ever, not in the next 6 months, would you ever hear a guy like Richard Haas saying we need to start putting sanctions on Israel? I would say you're crazy, not in a million fucking years. And it happened in less than 6 months. Let's play this one more time.
The relationship with Israel's most important benefactor. And that would mean the United States, I'm sorry to say, I'm sorry it's come to this, Willie, that we have to basically have some sanctioning of what Israel did. Not just the stuff in the UN. It's got to be conditioning arms deliveries, and it's got to be, I would think, some trade sanctions, for example, against goods coming out of West Bank settlements. Why should they be able to come here, for example, without certain tariffs or other economic penalties? We've got to basically, we can't have a policy based on persuading Israel. We have to increasingly have an independent policy that reflects our interests and values.
Coming up, our next guest.
All right. Sabby shared a video about an app that allows you to check products from Israel. I'm going to try it out, and if it works, we'll promote it on both shows. We'll promote it here, and we'll promote it on Jimmy's show. You feel so helpless here, watching what's happening to the Palestinian people. We can do what we can do, and definitely a part of the effort has to be to destroy Israel's economy in any way that we can. within the bounds of the law.
And apparently, you could say that now. They just said it on MSNBC. We're going to need sanctions. We're going to need trade embargoes on settlement products. I mean, that's amazing. Like I said, like these last 3 segments were all of a piece. It's sort of a trilogy in that way. Like, it's over. It's over. This attack on the WCK was it. It was it. I feel that very, very strongly.
It's definitely a turning point.
It's definitely a turning point, or a breaking point, if you will, because I don't think it reverses momentum, but it's just it's the bottom falling out. It's the bottom falling out. When you got Condoleezza Rice advisors, saying we need to condition aid, no weapons to Israel until they get aid, until they get food, and when you got this guy saying we need to sanction them, when you got the morning talk shows in the UK saying it was an execution, when you got Jose Andres, the State Department approved celebrity chef, saying this was intentional, that's it. It's over. It's over.
And when you look at the level of depravity and atrocity, I mean, this is the least of it. But when you look at some of the people in Hollywood who have signed these letters, you do wonder going forward how this is going to impact their careers once the narrative really shifts, as it is doing, to this was a genocide. How does it look if you were a signatory on a letter that supported that? Well,
this is why that Caitlin Johnson tweet struck such a chord, because you were warned about this. We said it immediately after October 7th, and so did she. What's going to happen? You could see this coming a mile away. When Benjamin Netanyahu promised an unprecedented price to be paid by the enemy, that could only have meant genocide. That's the only thing that could possibly have meant. He
literally invoked a biblical genocide.
Well, he didn't say that. I'm talking about on October 7th. The video that he put out as the attack was unfolding, he said the enemy will pay an unprecedented price. What you're talking about came, I think, a couple weeks later. But the day, he said...
before they signed that letter.
Oh, yeah. Well, before they signed the letter, absolutely. But on the day of, he said they will pay an unprecedented price. If you know anything about the issue, you don't have to be an expert. You don't even have to know a lot about the issue. If you know the first thing about the issue, you should have known that unprecedented could only mean genocide, because Israel has been walking right up to that line for the past 75 years.
Right. These are people who are comfortable setting snipers on peaceful protesters.
Exactly.
So what does unprecedented mean?
Right. It could only mean one thing. Only mean one thing. All right. We got time for one more segment, right? It's a short one.
Yeah, I think so.
All right. Let's take some super chats, and then we'll do one more. You can't see it in Staten Island, although it is the home of Wu-Tang, and released a song called PLO Style and kept using the phrase during their rise. Method Man mentioned that they respected the resistance. That's great. I'm telling you, statistically speaking, Staten Island is far less likely to be a hotbed of pro-Palestinian sentiment than the Bronx. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying nobody from Staten Island is based.
Sure, it's a big city.
It's a big city. Man, you never know what's going to bring it. Like, sometimes you just say a one-off thing, and that ends up being what the whole show is about in the chat.
Yes, I know. I'm well aware.
We've been talking for 2 hours. The chat is still litigating Staten Island. Yeah, but thank you for the donation. I appreciate it.
I hit those tripwires more often.
Yeah, it's weird. And sometimes you kind of expect it, but sometimes you're like, oh, who knew? Yes. That was going to stick in people's craw that way. I'm afraid anyone who takes 6 months to say "not in my name" is going to be the first back on Team Israel once Netanyahu or Likud gets removed from power. That's very possible.
You're absolutely right. But because it's interesting. I saw one that was very well written, acknowledging that Israel stole land, but still believing it has a right to exist, like the United States does, which also stole land. So they're not there. They're not there. They just don't want to be connected to genocide.
Right. Sam, thanks for the $1.99. To that point, read up on Korea. We killed 20% in 1950. Thank you, Sam. Marvin Queen, methinks this is a retribution kill for going over to feed starving Palestinians. Despicable. I think it's some of that, but I think it's mostly meant to scare other people out. Yeah, they want to scare other aid workers from being there. But thank you, Marvin. Excuse me. RBGH fam, thanks for the $5. In Tesla's defense, many states don't allow new Teslas to be sold because of regulations protecting dealerships. The old picking winners and losers.
So what? It all of a sudden became a problem for them after Elon Musk pissed off all the libs? Wasn't
Right.
a problem before. Why is it a problem now?
Mr. Fancy Pants, Condoleezza Rice is nice, but I'd prefer a Roni. All right, good one. I see what you do. See what you did there. Thank you. Biden 2024, no hope, no change, lots of emoting. Yes, thank you, Sam.
Yep.
Giovanni, thanks for the super sticker. Appreciate that. Kuznetsky Bassane, another great show. Thank you. Glad you're enjoying it. Thank you for the donation. John Michael became a member on YouTube. Thank you, John Michael. Appreciate that very much. That's a big help. Thank you, sir. Let's go to a couple of Rumble rants here. $1 Million Trooper, Ford's dividend is fairly generous, not financial advice. Shh. Yeah, thank you.
It's decent. It's decent.
Bonzo Beans, collateral murder. Thank you, Bonzo Beans. Scotch says the U.S. should not only stop all foreign aid to Israel, it should demand a refund of every penny ever sent there. That would be hard to get back. I'm not sure they're good for it. But I agree in principle, obviously. Bonzo Beans, thanks for the $1. Russ, I salute you for my afternoon sofa chill. Yes, Bonzo Beans, where are you, Bonzo Beans? Are you in Belgium or are you in Germany? I forget. I think Belgium, I remember hearing. Luis de la Cruz, Keaton, you got to call into Jimmy's show as Dr. Finkelstein. It's literally the best one I've heard. Hey, maybe we can get that approved.
Really funny.
see if he'll greenlight that. Hey, Jimmy, if you're still watching on your airplane, hey, wake up. I'll speak loud. Wake up. Yeah, if you greenlight that, I'll definitely do it. We'll do a Mike McRae style call as Norm. That would be fun.
That would be hilarious.
We just have to come up with a good topic to do it on. Wolves are cool. Bassem Youssef got his answer. The exchange rate is minimum 1,000 brown lives for one white life. Yeah.
I watched that film you recommended, The Warriors, and I didn't like it at all.
Yeah. That will be a lot of fun. We'll have to think of a concept. Okay. All right. Let's go to our final segment of the day. This is some more good news. As global sentiment really turns on Israel in the wake of the WCK killing. We have some news regarding the prospect of Palestinian statehood as recognized in this case, in this story, by Spain. So, Russell, you want to take this away?
Yeah, we want to end on a positive note here. So in keeping with what we're saying, that as horrific as it is today, there is some dawn breaking. Spain is set to recognize Palestinian statehood by July. Spanish Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Alvarez confirmed on Wednesday that Madrid will recognize the state of Palestine before July. Quote, "We need a real Palestinian state," Alvarez said at a meeting with journalists in Brussels. "The Palestinian people must not be condemned to forever be refugees." Spain's parliament passed a non-binding resolution in favor of recognizing Palestinian statehood in 2014, but both center-right, then Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy, and his successor, Socialist Party leader Pedro Sanchez, maintained that official recognition should only happen in concert with the rest of the European Union. Alvarez said the change in Spain's position was directly linked to the high number of civilian casualties since Hamas's October 7th attack and the launch of Israel's military operations in Gaza, as well as to the lack of progress in securing peace by other methods. He added that recognizing Palestinian statehood was key to ending the conflict in the region. Now, not to put a damper on it, Israel don't give a fuck. But it does open the door to trade sanctions and diplomatic withdrawal. We feel the same solidarity for the 32,000 Palestinians who have been killed as we do for the 1,200 Israelis, he said. This recognition takes Israel into the equation. The recognition of the Palestinian state is the best guarantee of security for Israel. During an informal meeting on Monday with journalists accompanying him on a tour of the Middle East, Sanchez suggested Spain could recognize Palestine before the summer. The Spanish PM has been one of the most powerful critics within the EU of Israel's military operations in Gaza, and on Tuesday demanded explanations from Israeli authorities following the deaths of 7 people working for Spanish celebrity chef Jose Andres' World Central Kitchen in an airstrike in the Palestinian enclave. In a joint statement released after last month's European Council summit in Brussels, the heads of government of Spain, Ireland, Malta, and Slovenia announced Malta representing, announced their readiness to extend recognition, quote, for the sake of peace and security in the region when the time is right. 9 of the EU's 27 members currently recognize the right of Palestinians to a state, but the majority did so prior to joining the bloc and within a 1988 effort among then communist and non-aligned countries. Only Sweden, which extended recognition in 2014, has done so as an EU member. So the tide is turning. Palestine is also making a push currently in the UN to have the UN. Right now, it's recognized as an observing member to be elevated to full membership. Now, of course, that has to clear the Security Council, and you can imagine how that's going to go with us, although it's going to be another embarrassment like the ceasefire. You're going to have every other country vote for it but the United States. Although when you look at the atmosphere, who knows? Who knows? But I would, as long as Joe Biden is president, I would not put my money on the United States not blocking that move. But I believe it would come up for a vote. I think they said April 18th.
Wow. Yeah. So that is something to keep an eye on because they have also sent a letter to the UN requesting membership and recognition, obviously. Pardon me, a representative from Malaysia floated that the UN should abolish the veto in order to get a ceasefire resolution passed. This was back when the United States was vetoing all of these.
Right.
But if they make a move like that, they may be able to work around people like our representatives who would potentially put the kibosh on such a thing. But yeah, I mean, this will accelerate anti-Israel sentiment and accelerate some momentum toward recognition of a Palestinian state. Because, look, while we are more in the one-state solution camp, you also do have to recognize there are benefits to statehood of a kind. It's not a solution for the region, but that gives you a lot more bargaining power when you are recognized in that way.
Well, you know what you're really seeing now in the narrative, and this is what's really going to change the equation for Israel. The anti-Israel is anti-Semitism narrative has collapsed. It's completely collapsed. It's an absurd thing to even assert now. Whereas at the beginning, they were able to, Dana Bash was able to frame her entire special about this subject as the rise of a new anti-Semitism. Nobody can say this shit anymore. Nobody can say it anymore. And once the EU countries are free of that specter of, the Nazis, once they're really free of that and able to treat Israel the way it deserves to be treated, that's going to be the end of trade relations with Israel. Like, once that dam really breaks and that momentum gets going and one country after another sanctions Israel, how do you become the country that doesn't sanction Israel? How do you justify that after the horrors that, again, we have not even seen the beginnings of the worst of it, I'm afraid to say. That's going to be it. How are they going to have a functioning economy with the entire world refusing to trade with them? What, with the exception of us? I mean, are we going to be the last ones?
Yeah, I mean, look, this goes without saying. It's Israel's own fault. It's also our own fault. It's our own fault. We could have reined them in if we wanted to from the very start. And any political leader with any prudential judgment could have seen that this was going to happen. And so they could have said, listen, for your own good as a state, we have to implement a ceasefire now, and we have to figure out a response to October 7th that does not kill innocent people, because we know from recent history we cannot trust you guys not to go in and flatten the place. And so for Israel's own good, we should have called for an immediate ceasefire. You have access to our CIA. You have access to anything you want from us to go in and do targeted strikes against the people who harmed you. That is what should have happened for Israel's own good. Instead, we sat back. We let them run this. We're still letting them run this in this way. And so this is obviously Israel's fault, number one, but a very close second. In fact, maybe not a close second, maybe tied for number one, is us, because we had the power. And with any foresight at all, you could have seen this coming at all. And I think they did see it coming. And I think they figured that there's just enough Zionist sentiment in this country that they could ride it out. I mean, how else do you explain? How do fucking 500,000 people flood the fucking square? If you had an Israel march now, you think they'd get nearly that many people showing up? I don't think so. Not in a million years.
No, I don't think so.
Not in a million
years. Not after this, honestly.
No,
not after this.
Yep.
Oh, don't worry. Juliana Margulies is going to write an op-ed. It'll be fine. It'll be all right.
Yeah, right, exactly. Okay. Incredible stuff. All right, we'll take some Rumble rants and Super Chats, and then we'll close the lights on this stream. We are back tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on the Jimmy Dore Show, and back on this channel on Sunday. Henry DeShazo, no thanks, app works great. When you start having guests, please consider the Duran. Well, we've had guests before. Please consider the Duran geopolitics, Brian Berlitic for Ukraine and Asia topics. Thank you, Henry. Appreciate that. China Shill. Just woke up and I'll listen to the replay at work. Keep up the great work. Solidarity forever to you and chat. Israel is an illegitimate state. Thank you, China Show.
Thank you, China Show.
Appreciate the solidarity. John Michael, WCK, hey, that van was ours. IDF, oh, sorry. WCK, what the fuck? You just hit our second van. IDF, oops, we meant to hit all three. Here you go. John Kirby, we covered this yesterday. Yeah, we don't know that Israel's committed war crimes. I think you showed that on... You showed that last night on Jimmy's show, and we showed it on Rumble yesterday, too. Yeah, there's
incredible. No evidence.
Incredible.
No evidence. And the guy, I think the reporter was from Scotland. He just asked incredulously. Yeah. There's no evidence in the last 6 months that Israel has committed war crimes. It's like a sketch.
Yeah, and you're past the point. I mean, that's the significance of this week, is that you're past the point where MSNBC is going to cover for you now. Yeah. Like you've gone past the like, if they can't legitimize that, who is left to legitimize that? How does the bottom not completely fall out at this point?
Right.
Yasim Miller, thanks for the $5. I've worked so hard to change my husband's family's mind about not voting for the Democrats. Sadly, they cannot get out of the bubble they are in. Well, it's your husband's family. As long as it's not your husband, then you shouldn't have many problems. Yeah. I mean, your in-laws, you know.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do?
Right, exactly. There's an old Jewish saying, what are you going to do? Right? Yeah. It's an old Hebrew mantra. Oh, what are you going to do? Yeah, maybe that'll get you through these times. Another larger contribution. Thank you, Kuznetsky. Appreciate you very much. Okay, let's go to some Rumble rants here. Gray Raven, when are we as a society going to begin to wrestle with and speak openly about the origins of all this bullshit, Freemasonry and counterfeit traitors to real Judaica behind this for centuries? I don't know much about that. I'll have to look into that. That's a little above my pay grade.
You know, I want to. We haven't really talked about this. I think we might do some kind of like fundraiser where I'll go out and actually do a live stream tour of New York. And there is a free Masonic cipher on one of the gravestones at Trinity Church.
I think my friend is a Freemason.
Is he?
I have a friend who's a Freemason.
Oh,
yeah.
So we'll bring him on to give us the skinny.
He lived in an apartment above where they have their lodge or whatever. So maybe he just
really?
He just incidentally
That's
stumbled.
That's got to be creepy shit.
Yeah. It's a me, Sarah
Oh,
P.
Lucifer, hear me.
Yeah, right. My baser maternal rage is highly keyed up. Thanks, Keaton. 0 days without crying on the job. Apologize for that, but thank you for the donation. Keep on keeping on. Stoop sign. There's Keaton. There's hundreds of members of Wu-Tang. They all put in a blank ballot. Thank you, Stoop sign. Warren, are you two aware of the red heifer prep that has been done in Israel? Yes. Should we do that on Jimmy's tomorrow? I feel like we've been talking about doing that forever, and we haven't done it yet.
Actually, you know what? That might be a good day for it.
Yeah, I think that would be a good day for it. because we've been talking about doing something on that forever. We just never managed to fit it in. We could have fit it in today, I suppose, but it was more fun to rag on Bill Maher. Wisconsin, unconstructed. New York, blank vote. Nevada, none of these candidates. Check your state. Thank you for the $5. Appreciate that. Okay, what do we got here? Is not in my name a thing among Israelis? We did a segment on the Israeli protest the other day. But they
were really protesting the fact that they didn't get the hostages back.
Right. There doesn't seem to be much moral outrage about the civilian casualties in Gaza. Not that there's none, and we've made a point to cover it where it exists. There were Israeli ceasefire protesters. It was a very small crowd, unfortunately, but we put them in the montage of ceasefire protesters last year. And then there was the Israeli filmmaker at the Berlin Film Festival who spoke out. I'm happy to give credit where it's due to Israelis who do speak out. I think it's important to amplify those voices. But unfortunately, they are fewer and further between than would be necessary for a hashtag like that, Bonzo Beans. Hesham MK, I bet Israel will sag the U.S. to war in the Middle East. Well, yeah, that's what the Iran strike is no doubt about. I mean, it's just, we covered that on the Jimmy Show yesterday. I mean, it's really death cult type shit.
Yeah.
Lawrence McNeil, what is a feasible and enforceable border for any recognized Palestinian state? If it's just Gaza, West Bank, then it's never going to work.
Israel should be one state with democratic rights for all. There should be no two-state solution. It's a one-state solution.
Yes.
You're absolutely right.
Absolutely. 100%. Lyndon McLeod, thanks for the $50. Oh, let's do our virtual cowbell, right? We don't have the actual cowbell here.
No, that's back in New York.
Thank you for that very much. 50 Canadian smackers. I wish I could get to the live show. Hope it sells out. You guys give me hope. Well, thank you. It means a lot to hear that. Appreciate that very much. And thank you for the very generous donation. Zillaruka, do you think American voters will ever start any kind of mass movement to reclaim voters' impact on legislation and policy in general? Not in the near future, unfortunately. I mean, I'm sorry to say that, but not in the near future.
The system has to be completely overthrown. Right. When you look at things like the $20 minimum wage for fast food workers that just went into effect in California, that's hopeful. And just as in the past, just as with the New Deal was the culmination of thousands of labor actions and union movements across decades before you got to the New Deal. You're going to need to build those kinds of organizations. And not coincidentally, the union then went on to be the backbone of the Democratic Party. That's why Bill Clinton had to destroy the unions in order to sell the party to Wall Street. That's why he did NAFTA.
Right. Name My Taco on Rumble. I'm just going to read these last few here. These Cretans say sanction Israel, but only after they've received all the planes and bombs necessary for their genocide. Oh, did YouTube censor that chat? Oh, that's no good. Well, thanks for going over to Rumble and sending it to us. Anyway, the real Just in Time says 10-7 Schmuth, we'll say, is gaining momentum. Mark Crispin Miller recently suggested that BB LIHOP. Yeah, I remember the LIHOP acronym from the old 9/11 days. That stands for Let It Happen on Purpose. I will have to look into that. And then Joey Butterfuckface. That's one of my favorite screen names. I don't know if you guys caught the 2016. Let me see. Can I? Yeah, there we go. That'll copy. No, it won't fit. Sorry, Joey Butterfuckface. It won't fit on my screen, but I will read it. I don't know if you guys caught the 2016 documentary 0 Days. General Michael Hayden says the quiet part out loud. Israel's hope is the U.S. will finish that which they start. A great documentary about Stuxnet. I will put that on my list.
Seen it.
I haven't seen it, but I will put that on my list for sure. Thank you for the recommendation. Alrighty, folks, that is our show for this morning. We appreciate you all being here very, very much. Once again, tickets to the live show are now on sale. DudeDissidents.com/night show for the 7 p.m. DudeDissidents.com/day show for the 2 p.m. Both of those shows will be broadcast live for our paid subscribers. So if you want to go and join the party at patreon.com/DoDissidents, that gets you access to those live shows as they happen. We will be taking Rumble Rants on stage at the Producers Club at Hell's Kitchen in New York City. Sandwich and Knuckles asks, can the chat room stay open when y'all close? Pretty please. That's not up to us. That's up to Rumble. So I don't know how that works. But we have a Discord too. So if you join our Patreon, you get access to the Discord. So you guys could chat amongst yourself there. And you know what I might do? Well, I don't know. Nobody uses Facebook anymore. I guess Discord is the right way to go. But yes, we do want to build community. And so I think you guys can stay chatting after the show ends as long as you don't close the window. So if you want to stay and hang out, you rascals are free to do that if you like. But I'm getting some lunch. All righty. So what time is it?
I'm getting some breakfast.
8:15.
That'll be the first time I have left the house since I got here.
That's right.
There's been one show after another. I haven't had time to leave.
Yeah, we have, 33 hours off after this? Wow.
I mean,
what a break.
Not really. We got the show tomorrow.
Well, that's what I mean. The show is in 33 hours, right?
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah.
Or not even 33 hours. Well, it's 11:15 starts it. So we have 26 and a half hours off.
I mean, it's enough time to leave and get some fucking breakfast before I
that's
start making exhibits.
It's enough time for a few pancakes. Exactly, yeah. All righty, everybody. Thank you very much for a great time this morning. We appreciate you all being here. Thanks to Steph Zamorano for helping us get the Wi-Fi figured out. That was a lifesaver because we were in some shit. Thank you to Kynan Thistlethwaite for joining us at the top of the show. You can go to votevega.nyc to help those guys out. We're going to have Jose on Jimmy's show tomorrow. He'll be on our show next week. And then we'll be out in the Bronx getting some signatures for the man in a couple weeks. So you can come say hello if you're in the New York area and you want to say hello for a good cause. Thank you guys very much for being here. Thank you to Jake, who was not in the booth today, but thanks for Jake's app helping us out with Rumble. Thanks to our YouTube audience, our Rumble audience, Kynan Thistlethwaite. We will see you guys all tomorrow, 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific on the Jimmy Dore Show. Back here Sunday night, 7 p.m. Eastern on the Do Dissidents YouTube and Rumble channels. Until then, be safe and be well. Thank you for this morning.
Remember to bring it over. Courage.
Please clap.